If you're a homeschool parent looking to decide what math curriculum might work best for you and your kiddos, stick around. I'll take you through Life of Fred, Cats, and I'll also give you some resources that may help you decide which curriculum can best suit your family. I'm Greta, a real estate broker with an MBA from Wharton who found joy homeschooling 3 amazing kiddos. I swapped boardrooms for board games and turned learning into a lifelong adventure. If you are a type A gone astray, still chasing checklists, but finding joy slowing down, welcome, you're in good company. Today we're going to do a flip through of Life of Fred, Cats. It is the 3rd book in the elementary series of the Life of Fred math curriculum. I got my hands on most of the books in the series in order to check it out to see if it might work well for my family. So I did a skim through of the book and wanted to give you a look at it also to see if it might be something that's beneficial for you. It is a story-based curriculum where Fred is a 5-year-old math genius and he teaches at Kittens University, and he really talks about everyday life, what he's going through, and tells stories while he's teaching the math concepts. So it kind of sneaks the math in. There's obviously math there that the kids are to practice, but it talks about math in ways that are not traditional. I was rather surprised that I was finding myself very engaged with the storyline here. I have seen some reviews where some of the children that are doing this curriculum find that it is a bit juvenile because they're thinking, why am I following around a 5-year-old? But me as a grown woman did not find an issue with that. So you just have to gauge that to see what's going to work best for you, for your kids. Here in the introduction, they talk about the fact that this curriculum really works well for children that like to read, but maybe don't like math so much. So reading is increasingly important just in life in general. So they cover off on that in the introduction. And then also the fact that they're going to use real world math. And this is integrated learning. That's why I really got into it, because they're talking about so many different concepts. Here in this book, they're talking about astronomy, human relations, physiology, music, geography, and English. So all of that really appeals to someone who maybe likes a unit study approach or likes going down rabbit trails. So in the table of contents, we're going to cover off, and I'll kind of walk you through as we go through the curriculum, some of the highlights from the table of contents. But what you're going to find in here is not typical chapter titles. The Big Dipper, Talking with Sam, Open 24 Hours, Hoodwinked, and Found. So these are going to take the concepts of math, but in a very untraditional way. So within chapter 1, they're talking a little bit about telling time, some constellations, here about the Big Dipper, commutative property of addition, and subtraction not being commutative. Here they're talking about some money, counting out nickels, and at the end of each chapter, there's a section that's called Your Turn to Play. It's not a quiz, it's not an assessment, it's not a test. It's just saying, please take out a piece of paper and write down your answers before you turn to the next page. The answers are right here on the next page of the book, but it talks about in the introduction that you're not going to get as much out of the book if you just say, okay, well, I kind of know this, and I flip the page. So within the Your Turn to Play, you're to get out a piece of paper, write down the answers, and then flip the page to check. So even in the Your Turn to Play, they introduce a new concept, an asterism. So I wasn't even familiar with what that was, constellations versus asterism. So I like learning right alongside my kids. And I found that interesting that in chapter 1 of a level 3 math book, I'm learning things already. It also talked about cardinal numbers. And then here are the answers. So here it's introducing the concept of algebra, but without being heavy on it. It's just showing that 4 plus 3 equals 7, and 4x plus 3x equals 7x. So it's just getting them familiar with the concept that they're going to see throughout their education. In chapter 2, Talking with Sam, they talk about time again, and then quarter. So a quarter of an hour. What does a quarter mean? Talking about a quarter of an hour, quarter of a dollar, what it's like when you write a quarter as a fraction. And time here written analog and digital. In chapter 3, open 24 hours, they're going to start counting by 5s and then also by 2s. So it's some skip counting here. And here we're looking at some more algebra with these symbols that the learner doesn't need to know what these mean. They just need to understand that there are different ways to write things within math and algebra. In chapter 4, it's called Hoodwinked. And they talk about what do you do with a defective heater and patterns in the snow, smooth, fluffy. And then again here with your turn to play. So just to be clear, they're just getting the concept of patterns out there to the children. And here we have deciduous and evergreen trees. Chapter 5 is called Found, and we have a very musical family, so I was little tickled to find that they're teaching a lesson, but also talking about music. There's occasional references to God, but not in a way that's trying to teach religion. So here it's just saying someone was thankful for everything God had given him. So just be aware of that. If that's something that your family is very stringent about, then just be aware. So here again, we talk about patterns and 4 basic emotions, music again, angles, and then sequencing. So it's showing the music notes. And then on this page, it shows a little mini lesson of this is a quarter note, this is a half note. Chapter 6, Alone with the Cat. So here we have an angle again. We're talking about he's in the corner. And then we're doing a little bit of math here and going into concept of obligate carnivores. Not a concept. It's introducing vocabulary. Talks a little bit about carbohydrates and carnivores. Addition here. So you can kind of see the level of math that's being covered here. As you look throughout the book, just see if it's a level that's appropriate for your child. So in this chapter, they're skip counting by 10s and talking about a quarter till and also degrees. So here we're talking about temperature and then some more addition and patterns. Chapter 8 is called Pacific. And they're talking about Pacific Ocean, some geography. Talked about the Mariana Trench, Ferdinand Magellan, and what does Pacific even mean? How does Pacific Ocean get its name? And germs and infections. Chapter 9, when in doubt, read. Avoiding bites and scratches. How you treat bites and scratches. And here they talk about cardinal numbers versus ordinal numbers. Chapter 10 is at the doctor's. And here it talked about taking blood pressure, the blood pressure cuff. That's way too much detail and different kinds of kitties. Chapter 11, saying goodbye. Talks about vowels. And brings up the music notes again. Okay. Chapter 12 is place value. So talking about ones, tens, and hundreds. Then all the way up to millions. Again, at the end of each chapter, there's a section called Your Turn to Play. Chapter 13, excuse me, it's called Jogging. And here is a little bit of music and adding numbers up to 13. Here they cover off on the Morse code, which is just, again, with Life of Fred, you might find some really seemingly random topics for math, but it's to keep the learner engaged in the material and cover off on math along the way. This one also talks about, I think this one, the 4 major oceans of the world. In chapter 14, it's called Sense. So they're really talking here about the root being C-E-N-T. So a century, a centenarian, centurion, and a cent. And they would talk about homonyms also. And also length, area, and volume, as well as prepositions are covered off in this chapter. Now, each of these chapters, I'll mention, only takes about 5 minutes to read for an adult. 5 to 6, some of them may be up to 7 minutes, but they're a very quick read, and the intention is to get the math in without it being laborious. There's, on average, just about 5 questions. There may be one with a few different parts, and then you go on to the next chapter expounding on those concepts. Chapter 15 is to the dictionary. So here, we talked about area again, and then 1 yard being 36 inches. And the metric system is also covered off here. So we have meters. Chapter 16 is called measuring, and we're doing volume measurements as well as weight measurements. And also referring back to the metric system, because these are the countries in the world that primarily use metric, and these are the countries that do not. There's only 3. Your turn to play, and the answers. Chapter 17 is called Into Rectangles. This is showing different parts of math, different areas of math, and how many things can go, how you can segment a rectangle to find area. Your turn to play and the answers. Chapter 18 is called Getting Dressed, which covers off on prime numbers, and also told a story about why you should put your pajama top on before you put on your shirt. Again, they'd covered off on commutative property of addition early on, so this is kind of circling back to that. And the last chapter here is chapter 19, called On the Way to Class, and that's when Fred thinks about writing a children's book and shows greater than or less than concept and symbol. Your turn to play. So here is the index. If you want to just take a look to see the concepts that are covered off on here. I tried to highlight as many as I could as we did the flip through, but the index may give you a better idea. So what I do is make review videos of curriculum and resources to help you decide what's going to be right for you and your learners. In some cases, I'm an affiliate of the company or the product that I'm sharing. In this case, I'm not. But just know that I'm going to give you my honest opinion, whatever I'm reviewing, and just wanted to give you a flip through of this. My kids are past this level, but I do believe I'm going to still go through this with them just to read it, to go over some of the unit study type items here. They don't need to practice the math, but again, the chapters are 5-minute reads, and right now it's summer, so I'm thinking we're going to go through Life of Fred and get up to the level that they will be addressing in the fall. This series might be especially interesting or helpful to families that like a unit study style, or if you're unschooling. You could easily pair cats or some of the other the individual chapters with a unit on animals or telling time or even storytelling, just based on what's in the index and what's covered off on each chapter. So if you do like a strict scope and sequence, this is not going to be your traditional math book, and it could be a huge deal breaker depending on your style. If you want a closer look at some of the math flip throughs, then just be sure to check out the playlist that I will link here, or definitely down in the description, so that you can see the rest of the flip throughs that I do for Life of Fred series and other math curriculum. If you go to teachingthetrifecta.com/toolkit, you can find a guide that I put together. This is just one of the stops on our Life of Fred journey. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions about other books in the Life of Fred series, or if there's other math curriculum you're looking at, or whatever you want to know about homeschooling. I am happy to help and glad to be here as a guide and a friend throughout this homeschooling journey. If you found this helpful, be sure to give it a like and drop a comment to let me know what you would like to see next.
Here's to raising kids who cherish beauty in the world and in the people they meet, who hunger for knowledge and seek wisdom, and who are building the strength of character to make a difference. Thanks for watching.